everybody, settle down, find your seats. Okay, welcome back to VTEC Academy. You're about to get schooled. All right, we're still working on Project Black and Blue, the Bruiser. I ordered a few things. They came in on Amazon. One of them was this shrink tubing. This is actually marine shrink tubing. It's double wall thick. It has an adhesive glue inside of it. This is what I wanted to use to size up the evap connector. Remember last time we tried to take the hose from the Accord for the evap, and it was a much larger diameter. So I'm going to use this to build it up. Because it has adhesive on here, it does a much better job of sealing, particularly if things get hot. I think it works pretty good. In fact, I used this recently to upsize an 1.1/8 radiator inlet to 1.25 inches, and that worked pretty good too. Much larger piece of tubing, but same type of thing. One of the other things I ordered was a new V-band clamp. I don't know if you recall, I may or may not have left it in the video. I actually damaged the one that was on the car. I over tightened it and broke it off. Just snapped that thing right off. Kind of surprised me. But I wonder what brand it was. Anyway, I ordered a new one. We're going to put it on. All right. Now we'll cut a chunk of the heat shrink off and connect up our purge system. You can see it sized it up rather nicely. We'll see if this all fits together now. Okay, fuel line on, evaporative emissions line on. What's next? Okay, now that I've got the last couple of things from the last episode wrapped up, I have a list here of things I need to do in order to get this done. I'm going to start off by torquing the exhaust manifold and also installing the heat shield. There's actually quite a bit of room behind the engine, but the heat shield is still necessary to kind of control underhood temperatures. I'm also going to install the radiator hoses, do the grounds, put the wiring harness through the firewall. Then I'm going to put the intake air tube on, including the intake air sensor. Then we need to worry about the alternator recharge cable and the starter cable, and then basically go on to the battery. In this car, the battery's mounted in the rear because of the fact there's really no room for it up front. I mean, initially, with this particular car, there's a battery tray that sits over here where this bracket is, but because the stock bracket was over there and the battery tray used to be on the other side, not really room for that. I suppose I could build kind of a custom battery mount, which I probably should do. In fact, I think I will. I would like to move the battery back up front, but right now my cold air intake is going to take up that room, so Yeah, I'll have to think about this a little bit further. But we'll install the battery, I think, in the trunk for the moment. Gosh, that's just like, now I'm really puzzling over this. I like the idea of a battery up front, but it is going to interfere with where I'm able to place the cold air intake. At one point I had the battery mounted all the way down the subframe, which was kind of a cool idea, but it was kind of hard to maintain maintenance. Yeah, I'm gonna have to think about that further. Anyway, need to get all the stuff done so I can get it fired up. See, if I recall correctly, this upper radiator hose I got off of a 92 Delsol VTEC. Might have had to shorten it a little bit. Could have been off a 92 GSR too. But basically that's the shape of it. So those hoses happen to be this 1 1/4 inch size that we need for this thing. And they fit really nicely. That's all the way on. There we go. The bottom hose, pretty sure it's off an EP3. Well, we're going to put this in from the bottom. I don't recall there being a top or a bottom way to install this. I think it's pretty much the same either way. You know, I think I'll reposition the clamps. So these are actually spring clamps. Yeah, just spring them. You ever had these snap loose on your finger? Not fun. Got me. By the way, if you hadn't already plugged in your radiator fan switch down here, now would be a good time. Next are the grounds. Hasport gives out these tricky little threaded flange washers. Normally you would put one right here on a lot of the K-swap kits and use your ground to that. This particular car though, the ground sits back here on the on the shock tower, so I find it's a little bit easier just to go ahead and attach it to the head instead. When I had this installed last time, I had the ground actually attached to the transmission right here by pulling up this one bolt for the shift mechanism. But I think I'm actually going to use the ground tab this time. The ground tab sits right here underneath this bolt, and then you just attach your ground to that. I suggest supporting the engine from underneath when you're doing this. Otherwise the mount's liable to gap. Might not be so easy to get the bolt back in. Take the washer off. Put the flange washer on. And screw it back down. Like I said, support it from underneath. Once you're done installing the grounds, I suggest going back through the entire car, tightening all the mounts and brackets to make sure they're tight. I actually had to loosen this one up because it wanted to misalign when I took the bolt out to put it in the ground tab. Should have put it in when I put the mount in. So next is the harness. We're going to feed it back underneath these lines and across the top of the firewall. We want to keep it away from the header so it doesn't melt. This plastic grommet will plug straight into the stock hole. This rubber grommet is what seals out the weather. So what you want to do is you want to put it on first. And the way you do that is, you can see right here, there's a rubber key that coincides with this part on the plastic. So you need to feed that through. And then just get the rubber grommet on all the way around. There we go. By the way, a lot easier to pull it off than it is put it on. Basically, to get it off, you just tug on these ears. It comes right off. That's if you're plucking it out of a car at the salvage yard. The rubber is on, it's protected. All right, let's plug it in. All right, pulled it through from the inside. Now just need to snap it in place. All right, some zip ties and we're good to go. The last two connections I need to make are these. I don't know if you recall when we were doing our wiring harness a while ago. This is actually our starter wire, and this is the alternator recharging connection. This comes from the alternator, goes to the starter. This simply attaches to the fuse box here. So take the lid off this, which is a real pain in the butt with the AC hose in. Normally with this AC hose, this is over on that side of the car, and the ABS is over here. But anyway, connects right there. By the way, this other wire right here, this is what connects to the battery. This actually comes down and connects to a block down here that I'm going to connect our starter wire to as well. I'll show it to you in just a minute. Okay, down here is a Memphis car audio fuse block. This metal plate actually used to be 2 fuses. And of course you want to put fuses on your battery connections, but I'll tell you what's funny. Having the fuses up here kind of destroys the purpose of the fuse. I've got a large gauge battery cable that travels from here all the way to the trunk, and that's not the place to put the fuse. The place to put the fuse is back in the trunk. So some time ago, I went ahead and just made this a straight connection with no fuse block anymore. So what's going to happen is my starter wire is going to come down here and plug into the other side of the fuse block, get tightened down, and then this cable goes back through the firewall all the way to the back of the car. Let me tighten this down and then we'll go back there. Longer extension would have been smart. We're going to need to secure this out of the way so it doesn't get dragged into the belt and worn through. And there's an insulator that goes on top of this. I need to locate it somewhere in my stuff. So here's my current battery setup. Initially I had an Optima battery back here, which didn't require that the battery be mounted in a sealed box. But in spite of that, actually it would have been in violation of certain rules. Most race groups, drag racing included, require you to have a remote switch to turn off the car just in case something happens. This battery being mounted in the back, that would have fallen into that rule group and would have been required to have that. So I'm not positive I'm going to leave the battery back here, particularly if we wind up going to track and stuff. But I think initially I'm going to do it just to get the car back on the road again. I really should put it in a box though. So what I bought is this Noco box at Walmart. And it actually fits nicely in this base right here. So it should be easy to attach down and get it in there. I may wind up running the belt underneath this metal plate and then going over top the box in order to secure the battery. Another option which I'm considering is actually building a sealed top for this, so that maybe I might wind up leaving it back here or reusing this box with another car. The box top that comes with it is hardly sealed. This is actually kind of a marine battery setup, not a race car battery setup. So this doesn't really follow the rules strictly because of these large gaps and vents, which kind of destroys the purpose of having a sealed box. Anyway, I think that I'm probably, like I said, might just make a sealed top for it. Then if I ever decide I want to make it legal for racing, I'll go ahead and rig up a power switch back here somewhere. And I think that'll work pretty good. I also mentioned while I was up there, I have this big, huge honking cable that goes all the way to the front, and it was fused up front, and that's just dumb. If it happened to short out somewhere between here and the front, the battery would basically arc and probably catch the car on fire. So I decided I'm going to add a fuse back here. Now, what I decided to do was use this thing. You can buy fuses, you know, a lot of stereo system stuff. I actually found this on a lot of the newer BMWs. This is for the remote mounted battery that's like on BMWs and Porsches and stuff like that. It's got a 250 amp fuse here, and basically you bring the battery cable in, or in this case we're going to probably bring it in this way, and then a cable out to go to the front of the car. And what I thought I would do is actually mount it on the back side of the box here. That way I don't have to drill any holes in the car. It'll be, you know, easy to service, other than the fact that it'll be kind of on the back side of this. But you know, I can just lift the battery out, box out, and just change the fuse if I need to. But I think that'll actually be a really nice compromise. So these things, shoot, I think I paid like $8 for it, maybe $10 for it at the salvage yard. Kind of a really cool deal. It looks like it's set up for a lot more, you know, fuses in here generally. But I'm basically just going to use it with the one single fuse right here. So again, one lead comes in here, one lead comes in here, and your 250 amp fuse protects your car from bursting into flames if something were to happen. I'll probably just drill a couple of new holes and screw it down. It actually clipped into a metal bracket on the BMW, but if I recall correctly, that bracket was welded into the car. So and I'm not going to bother making one. I'll just use a few screws. Anyway, I need to get going on that now. In order to finish my battery box, I'm going to have to order a few parts, but let's move on. Next thing I need to do is install my intake. I made this a while ago. Basically, went to Vibrant Performance and ordered two 90-degree pieces of tubing, 3 inches, and also this coupler that went from I think it's 275, 250, I don't know. I'll put part numbers in the show notes. And it was a 45-degree coupler, and that sits like this. And by welding on these two extra pieces of tube, we can hook up to our air assist valve and also to the vent for the crankcase. And then the air filter can sit right here down tucked in front of the transmission. Now, as I said earlier, I actually ordered 2 pieces of 90. The other one being right here. And the reason I did that is because I wanted to be able to actually take the second 90, attach it with a silicone coupler, whoops, so that it now put my air filter down here behind the front fender to make it a cold air intake. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I often call cold air intakes drinking straws. When you go out in the rain, the tendency is to go through a puddle, suck up a bunch of water, hydrolock your engine. That's why AEM went to great lengths to make a valve that whenever there was water, extra pressure from water, it would actually draw through a a valve that's at midway in your air intake tube. I thought having a two-piece construction was going to be a good idea because you could have it on there when you needed the cold air, but for general driving, I thought I would just put the filter in here. I don't need all the horsepower all the time, but if I'm going to the track and I want that little extra boost, plus when I go to tune it, I would like it drawing from colder air. So I'm going to get a silicone coupler to bring these two together, set up the air filter so it's down there in that area down there, and that means I'm going to need to put some sort of a shield in there for the tire. My plastic fender liners are gone. They tend to get ripped out during racing. They get beat up, tear, and then snag on something. So what I'm going to do is build like an aluminum plate down there that will actually prevent the tire from throwing rocks at my filter or from splashing water at it directly if I get caught out when I shouldn't be. But I thought it was a cool little design, and that's how it works. Don't forget your intake air temp sensor. Looks like I'm going to need a couple of tubes in order to make my connections to the intake. No big deal. I think I have them already down at work on the old engine. But next I need to get oil and distilled water. All right, we have filled up the engine with Mobil 1 synthetic 5W30, which is what the engine calls for. By the way, there are some products out there for high mileage motors. This motor is over 175,000 miles, so, and even at that mileage, it's really not that high mile. In fact, Honda motors aren't really high mile until you see them start to smoke, and then usually they need to be rerun, not some sort of high mileage motor oil or something like that. But anyway, next thing is to fill the system, the coolant system. I'm going to suggest you go out and buy one of these. This is called a spill-proof funnel, and there's like a little cap here that screws on with an opening. You just pop this right down in there. You can fill it up with a lot of extra water, and that makes it a lot easier to bleed the system. Sometimes I'll actually even disconnect one of the hoses here back. There's this vent for the valve cover, and there's a hose that goes up and kind of warms that air coming out. So I'll disconnect that hose and then fill up the system, and as water shoves come out of that, I'll reconnect the hose. That'll actually help get the air bubbles out as well. But once you have it filled up all the way, you can fire up the car, let it idle. You can actually see when the thermostat opens up, because you'll see the water start to circulate in here. You can see it start moving. And when it does that, I'll usually rev the engine up to maybe 2,000 RPM, not too high. You go too high, it'll actually push water out of the not so spill-proof funnel. But that'll help kind of push air through the system and get it out of there. You can let it idle for, gosh, probably let the thermostat open 3 times at least. Once you do that, you can shut the engine off, and as everything cools down, it'll suck some of this water back down in with it. Then there's a plug like this that you can plug it off with, bring it out, take it off, and put a regular radiator cap on, and that usually takes care of it first time. Anyway, guys, you don't need to see me fill this thing up with water, so we're going to go ahead and call it quits for today. Anyway, please, if you like what you saw, please consider subscribing to our channel, and also if you hit the bell, that'll give you notifications when new videos come out. Thanks again for joining us here on VTEC Academy. Talk to you later.